Dr. Rajan Prasad.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad to be taking a short call at the final stages of this bill. But I understand, Mr. Speaker, that there's huge international interest in this particular bill today, because I know that there are at least 2 people in Toronto, Canada, watching this bill. And if I could just acknowledge my son and my daughter-in-law who are watching. So there you are. I've done that. Mr. Speaker, this is not a complicated bill. And it's 2 simple clauses, and two sunset clauses are being extended, and that's where we find ourselves, and it's the decent thing to do to support it, and that's what we're doing on this side of the House. But what's been interesting, Mr. Speaker, is just observing the process and reading the earlier speeches that people gave about this particular bill. And the various stages of this bill. The bill is designed original bill 2005 was designed to address a particular problem that occurred then in a particular case when prisoners were getting compensated, and as the Honourable Phil Goff has said, it was not acceptable. So the provisions of this bill were put in place so that any monies prisoners were getting were then to be channeled through to victims so they could get fully compensated. And that was the decent thing to do. And so this bill simply extends those provisions for now. But it's interesting how some of the speeches given in the first and second reading of this bill, and also during the committee stages, how some speakers, some government members, have taken this very simple bill to inordinate lengths to make a different kind of statement. So in the first reading, what Tim McIndoe was doing was saying this, and I think is still his view, is saying that this bill is part of a large measure of initiatives, an arsenal of initiatives to improve public safety and respect for law and order. Well, this bill does nothing of the kind. It never did. But of course, never miss an opportunity to drive home that the only party that wants to push law and order is really government, the National Party. And yet this bill was put in place under Labour. Alfred Ngaruas, also in his first reading, did something very similar, Mr. Speaker. National is reforming our criminal justice system to put a stronger emphasis on victims. And our colleagues on this side of the House, etc. And he was again calling up through this particular bill National's focus on victims. In fact, this bill does nothing of that sort. It's 2 simple clauses and just extending sunset clauses. And they weren't talking about that, but here was an opportunity, never let it pass. But of course, Cam Calder is the other. In fact, Mr. Calder did it again, and as he took a very, very short call just a few minutes ago. For him, this bill is another example of the national government working to improve the justice system. This bill, Mr. Saban, does nothing of the sort. All this bill does is fix something the government should have fixed a long time ago. So this bill, truth be told, is really, under these circumstances, 2 days before it's required, is fixing a problem that the government members never filled. And so, not big enough to accept that, but indeed that was the case. But the comments that I've just quoted simply show that members have really not grasped, and Mr. Saban's comments a moment ago still have not grasped the essential nature of this bill. It's very simple. It's just extending 2 clauses, sunset clauses. Wear it proudly and say, we should have fixed it before, we didn't, but now we need to. And it's a bit like the Minister of Police last week, and being there, wanting to push the button to crash crush the car, and then standing on it as if she'd climbed a mountain and now needed to plant a flag, Mr. Saban. That was obscene. That was obscene, unnecessary. But it was another one of those, just some kind of taking the opportunity to say that here's the government tough on law and order, etc. One car's been crushed, and this bill hasn't been, the provisions of this act, rather, have not been used to any great extent. But Mr. Speaker, just to repeat, this bill has come before the House in this form now simply to fix something the government should have done some time ago. And that's worth repeating, but others have said that quite clearly. But Mr. Charles Cheval has actually taken it further, because there is another bill before the House that will be a government bill that will say, well, this is how compensation systems should work for prisoners, etc., and how that should pass on to victims. But I think Mr. Cheval has actually put a lot of thought in his first reading speech to say, you know, there's more to it than that. The government should do a first principles review and go back to say, well, what are we trying to do here, and why is it that we are only talking about what happens to our prisoners and what happens to compensation that our prisoners get? Why aren't we talking about windfalls that others get even if they're not in prison, and why is that not to be channeled through to victims as well? That would be putting victims at the centre, as government members have been saying. And at the moment that work hasn't been done, and we certainly encourage that work to be done, because there is an opportunity, there is a bill, there's 12 months to do it, and I hope it well within that time frame that thinking will be done and it will be brought back. Finally, Mr. Speaker, there is another lesson in there, which is a warning, if you like, about those who devise programs in our institutions or elsewhere, to ensure that those programs are organized in such a way that they do respect human rights. And I know that Tony Ryle, judging by earlier comments he made about human rights, doesn't respect human rights, but it still is something. Well, the Honourable Phil Goff actually quoted him. He actually quoted him, and I didn't see the Honourable Tony Ryle standing up and resiling from those earlier comments. Maybe he will, but the point is, human rights are important, and anybody who's been in that role, here and internationally, will actually need to ensure that those rights are respected. And it's not that difficult to do. But sometimes in the kind of rather single-minded approach that some government members have taken to law and order, and etc., you forget those things as well. And it's entirely possible to resile those and bring them together. So with those comments, Mr. Speaker, we commend this bill to the House. Thank you.
Katrina Shanks.